All right, we're going to talk about the 1920s, and this is day one. We're going to do this in 2 days. So basically what we're looking at is this overview of new culture, new fashion, new music, and just this whole kind of decade that is very, very different than the previous or the one to follow. So we're going to talk about the social change and conflict. We're going to talk about the Red Scare, the resurgence of nativism and Ku Klux Klan, Prohibition, lots of stuff going on in the 1920s. This is President Harding, and President Harding campaigns about a return to normalcy. He actually makes that word up, and it is in our vernacular now. So normalcy will be under attack, as you can see by Darwin here, Al Capone, the Charleston, and this Red Scare. And we are afraid of things going on because of the Russian Revolution. If a country that large can be taken over by communism, and we have some disparity in rich and poor and so forth, rise of socialism, it could happen here. So there is a fear that we talked about at the end of World War I. So the very first Red Scare is going to be right after World War II. It lasts about a year and a half, and it starts out with this fear of anarchy stepping in, and Bolshevism, disorders, and strikes. So this man is our Attorney General. His name is Mitchell Palmer, and he is going to be targeting communists, socialists, anarchists. He is going to arrest thousands of people, and I think as we said in the last overview, about 250 are going to be deported. So this is a picture of these radicals that are waiting to be sent out of the country. They look very dangerous, don't they? Okay, so this is Palmer, and he says that upon these two basic certainties, first, that the Reds were criminal aliens, and second, that the American government must prevent crime, it was decided there could be no nice distinctions drawn between the theoretical ideals of the radicals and their actual violations of our national laws. Sounds pretty ambiguous. So you can see here, this is a criticism of this roundup. You can see free speech being that broken, the Constitution on the ground, the Declaration of Independence, and the Department of Justice with the club in hand. I think maybe Lady Liberty there. So this is a really good political cartoon. So we've defined this before, nativism. And this is someone basically who is against immigration and against immigrants. We had this once before. Remember that party? It was the Know Nothing Party. So a lot of people blamed the country's problems on immigrants and immigration. And remember, we talked about the phases of immigration, and you can see here they're targeting these socialists down here. You see Italians and Polish. You see the mafia in New Orleans, anarchists in Chicago, socialists in New York. So there's a lot of stuff going on here in this political cartoon. Kind of reminds you a little bit of maybe some of the problems today. So this is showing the difference in the immigration. So from 1900 to 1909, you can see the most of the immigration here, the large red circles in the northern part of Europe. And then this southern area, Italy, Greece, the western part of Russia, a lot of Jewish people fleeing from the pogroms. We talked about that when we did immigration. So you can see this changing face of U.S. immigration and the fear of anarchy. So for the second time in our history, we are going to initiate some restrictions on immigration. Remember the first one? Okay, if you said the Chinese Exclusion Act, you would have been correct. Now we're going to put a quota on people from these different countries. And basically this is a result of the pressure from these nativists. So you can see the difference in immigration from Eastern Europe. In 21, it was 138,000, went all the way down to 10 and 14,000 in the late 20s. Southern Europe from almost 300,000 down to 8 and 22. Mexico stays pretty much the same here. Okay, so this is another political cartoon. This is one I've seen on the AP test before. And right, you can see the symbols here. The Uncle Sam up here on the wall looking down on the immigrants that used to be wide open, remember, the only 2% were sent back. Now they're requiring things like a literacy test as symbolized by the books and the pens. And back in the background you see the land of the free. So lots of symbols here. And of course the wall, you can relate that to things going on today. This was a symbol of if the glove don't fit, you must acquit. Don't know why that's there right now. Okay. All right, so we'll talk about nativism. One of the trials that took place during this time period was the Sacco and Vanzetti trial. And these were two Italian immigrants who were anarchists. And they were accused of robbing a paymaster, and killing a guard and a paymaster in Braintree, Massachusetts. The case was purely circumstantial evidence and was an example of nativism. We're going to have a short ed puzzle on the Sacco and Vanzetti case that will give you a little bit more detail. There was around the world, people disagreed with the verdict. They're going to find them guilty, and they are going to be executed. You can see here the cartoon in the middle, just comparing this to the witch trials of 1692. And these are the death masks. This is something they used to do in the past, and this is Sacco and Vanzetti. Large turnout. Okay, so what are some of the cultural changes in the 1920s? Probably one of the biggest cultural change is women. Women have the right to vote now. They're feeling a little bit more freedom. And you can see here lots of new appliances. So they're going to have a little bit, look how happy she is. She's got all these wonderful new appliances, vacuum cleaner, waffle iron, electric washer. Just all of this stuff is supposed to be making the woman's work so much easier. This is the new fashion. This is the new woman. Okay, before that, women, of course, wore their hair very long, piled up on top of their heads. They were covered from top to bottom. And now you're going to see women cutting their hair, this bobbed hair look, and short skirts, high heels, stockings. And is the man always happy about it? Right. There are some downsides. So if the woman is out having a good time and voting, is she going to be taking care of the home? Okay. So they call these women flappers, and a lot of people think that has to do with the dance style. And of course you are flapping your arms and kicking up your heels, and the most famous dance is the Charleston. They are challenging what society had been up until that time. There's going to be this new music, new hair, and now with the advent of the automobile, you're going to have more women going out on dates, have some privacy. You're going to have a rise in premarital sex, and you're going to have teenagers. Child labor laws are going to be passed, and so you're going to have this kind of new group that used to be working in the factories, and now they're going to school and having them some fun. Sigmund Freud is strong during this particular time, and he comes up with his theories, and he talks about sex and how repression of sex can make you crazy. You can see women are smoking, they're going to the clubs, and jazz. So remember we talked about Scott Joplin, and he is coming up with ragtime, and that is going to evolve into jazz. And here are two of the most famous of the jazz musicians, probably the most famous here on the right, Louis Armstrong. Duke Ellington is going to have a big band with jazz, and people are going to react very, very favorably to this. So instead of having these restrictive dresses, top to bottom, cinched waists, now you're going to have women that are free. There's lipstick, they're smoking cigarettes, and this is the It Girl. The It Girl was Clara Bow. So the first It Girl is someone who has that special something. Women want to be like her, men want to possess her, and it's universal. Only other It Girl maybe that was a universal was in the 1950s. Can you guess? Yep, if you guessed Marilyn Monroe, she was definitely an It Girl. That special something, you can see the big eyes, and it's easy to remember Clara Bow, kind of those bowed lips and big eyes. All right, this was one of the first Miss America contests, and you can see the revealing swimsuits that they're in here. Not too revealing, but the winner of this was actually Miss Atlantic City, Miss New Jersey, and she is the one, not in the middle, she is the one fourth from the left. Not everybody agreed with these new women. You can see here, vulgar person. I'll go back to the hotel. The sights here are disgusting. New fashion, Coco Chanel. And Coco Chanel actually starts her designing in the 1920s, and she said that every woman should have this special item in her closet. If you said a little black dress, you would have been correct. So what else? Some men didn't really like it, and some women didn't really like it. They saw that as a threat. And a lot of women wanted to stay at home, wanted to take care of their family, wanted to raise their children. So we had a lot of new inventions during the 1920s. One of them is Kleenex. So Kleenex was the #1 brand since 1924. Kleenex was actually invented because of the Spanish flu, which we talked about, where people were using and reusing cloth napkins. And so this is a much more sanitary way. We became aware of the transfer of bacteria. And even though we've got all different brands now, people still say Kleenex. Scotch tape is invented during the 1920s, and actually that was invented as a response to putting tape on a car so you could have a two-tone car and have a straight line. Band-Aids. So this was actually invented because a guy who worked for Johnson & Johnson married a young lady who was a klutz, and he would come home and find blood all over the kitchen, and he made gauze and put tape on it and hung it up, and voila, you've got the Band-Aid. The zipper, and the popsicle. So a guy was actually mixing up some powdered fruit in water on his back porch. He forgot about it, went out, pulled out the stick, and he went voila. His name was Epperson, and he wanted to call it the Epsicle and got got talked out of it. So this is these are the original 3 flavors. So which one do you think is the most popular flavor? Yep, if you said cherry, you would have been correct. No points off for that one. Eskimo pie. This was developed. A guy was working at a soda fountain and started experimenting with trying to get the chocolate to stick to the ice cream. And he finally got just the right mixture. And he originally wanted to call that I can't even remember, the ice cream chocolate bar something. So they talked him out of that and talked him into Eskimo pie. So these are some other firsts in the 1920s. We've got toasters and Rice Krispies and Wrigley's chewing gum and Welch's grape jelly. New refrigerators. This is going to improve the health of people. So instead of having to shop every day, now you've got or getting big blocks of ice. Now you've actually got a place to keep your food fresh. This is an electric stove, and on the over the oven, that was actually a warming area where you could put the food that you'd cooked. Now, these were luxury items. So prior to 1920, you've heard the expression painted woman. People used to have to mix up all their makeup, and now you could get lipstick in a tube, pressed powder, and they put those watches that used to be on chains around your wrist. And there you see a couple of people with the chauffeur and getting into a limo. So Prohibition is starting, and yet people are still drinking. So with the passage of the 18th Amendment, Prohibition goes into effect. No manufacture, sale, or transportation of liquor. Now they have to figure out a way to enforce this, and they are going to put this under the Treasury Department, but they have very few agents to start off with, and they're going to target like the major people, the breweries, in Louisville, the whiskey manufacturers. You can see them here, targeting these industries and destroying barrels of alcohol. So when this happens, you're going to see all these little tiny bars, in some cases they're pretty big, popping up, and some of them are going to require a secret word to get in. So you were supposed to say that very quietly so the person behind you couldn't hear it, and they were called speakeasies. Bootleggers are going to be the people who are bringing in alcohol, in some case even manufacturing it. This is actually when President Kennedy's father is going to make a fortune. He has connections in Ireland, and he's going to be bringing liquor in through Canada to distribute it throughout the East Coast. Because of Prohibition, you're going to see a rise in organized crime. And basically they take over certain territories, and of course this fellow Al Capone, known as Scarface, was the most notorious of all the people with organized crime. He had pretty much control of most of Chicago. During this time, a reporter named H.L. Mencken wrote about Prohibition. After 5 years of Prohibition have had at least this one benign effect. They have completely disposed of all the favorite arguments of the prohibitionist. None of the great boons that were to follow the passage of the 18th Amendment has come to pass. There is not less drunkenness in the Republic, but more. There is not less crime, but more. There is not less insanity, but more. The cost of government is not smaller, but vastly greater, and respect for law has not increased, but diminished. There was corruption at all levels. You can see here, take a look at this cartoon. Yes, you have the agents, you have everybody has their hand out, you have police and officers taking bribes, politicians, even the judges are taking bribes and looking the other way. They have their backs turned and not enforcing prohibition. In 1933, the 18th Amendment will be repealed. And there's one major reason. Remember, we go into a Great Depression in the 1930s. So what is that reason? If you said economic, money, taxes, you would have been correct. Okay, a lot of African Americans are moving north. They do that during the 20s and during the war. Remember, the war effort led a lot of Black Americans in the South to go to the North for job opportunities and to escape racism. And they're going to call this the Great Migration. So you can see the difference. Here's 1900. Sorry, I thought I would get that. Oh well, oops, I'm sorry. Can't go backwards. All right, I will try to fix that and post that for you. There was a artist named Jacob Lawrence, and he is going to do a series of panels showing the Great Migration. And this, notice the primary colors. This is called primitive art, and it's really quite beautiful. He starts out with his people in the South, and all of his panels are numbered. And basically, he goes through the 60, moving them through this process. So the pull factors for this movement, of course, were economic, the escape of racism in the South, the sharecropping, and employment opportunities in the North. So this is more of Jacob Lawrence's, and they are absolutely beautiful. Educational opportunities for their children. So those are all pull. The push, of course, is the discrimination, Jim Crow laws, and so forth in the South. Escaping injustice, the lynching that was going on. So there's your 1900, and there's 1990. Okay, that's considerable difference. This is not without consequences. So even though there was discrimination and Jim Crow laws, what they call de jure discrimination, de jure segregation, when Black people moved north, they found it de facto segregation. And in some cases, this actually resulted in rioting. And two of the worst and most infamous riots were in East St. Louis and in Chicago. Hundreds of people were killed. So Wilson, who wanted to make the world safe for democracy, here's a cartoon saying, why not make America safe for democracy?